Welcome back. This is Mr. Greenstein's Geometry. We're in Chapter 5, Section 5, proving triangles are congruent by using SSS. We'll find out what that means in a moment. There's a theorem that says that all we need is three sides. If we can show that three sides of one triangle are congruent to three sides of another triangle, then the triangles are congruent. We don't need any of the angles to show that. So here's another way that we can express that. Three sides, if they're congruent, then we know that the two triangles are congruent without knowing anything about the angles. And once we know that they're congruent, then we know all the angles are also going to be congruent. So that's kind of a byproduct after this. So let's prove that these two triangles are congruent. We know that KL and LN are congruent, and KM and MN are congruent. So let's start off with our given, and then we know that LM is congruent with itself because of the reflexive property of congruence. Once we have all three sides that we've shown, then we know that the two triangles are congruent by side, side, side. Let's determine if ABC triangle and DEF are congruent if we're given coordinates. So if I measure the distance from A to B, and I use the distance formula, so the distance formula is going to be the square root of the squares of the differences. AB is going to turn out to be 10. BC is going to turn out to be 8. And then AC is going to turn out to be 6. Likewise, if I take DE, DE is going to turn out to be 6. EF is going to turn out to be 8. And DF is going to turn out to be 10. So if I match up the sides, then we know that triangle ABC is going to be congruent to triangle DFE. I want you to work out the second one on this page and figure out whether they're congruent and then what their congruent statement would look like. There's also another theorem that says that if I know that I have a right triangle, so two right triangles, and I know the hypotenuses are the same, and the side, there's one leg that's the same, then I know the two triangles are congruent. So the three pieces of information. We know that we have right triangles, so it has to be a right triangle, and then the hypotenuses have to be congruent, and one leg. So those three pieces of information, then I know the two triangles are congruent. Let's try to solve a problem using this. Here I have two triangles that I want to show are congruent, these big triangles here. And I know a certain amount of information. I know that WY, this long distance here, is congruent to this distance here. I know that. And then I know that I have perpendiculars going here and here. So once I have that, then let's see how I can prove this. So I first start out with my given, and then I know I have a reflexive property of this side down here that's shared with both triangles, so I can say that I have that side. I can say that the right angles are congruent because I can say that right angles are formed by the perpendiculars, so I have right angles. And then I can say that the two triangles are congruent because of HL. I have two sides, or I have a hypotenuse, and I have a leg of two right triangles, then they are congruent. We'll discuss more of this when we get back to class the next day.